Okay, time to talk about the delayed game 3 of the World Series. It was a wait to catch a World Series game in Philly for the first time in over a decade, and damn, did that pay off. I mean, home run palooza. It started with Bryce Harper in the first, and then you have back-to-back bombs from Hoskins and Marsh. Is that right? Or was it
Yeah,
Schwarber and Hoskins?
I mean, it was all of them. There was
It
five
was
home runs.
everybody.
Brandon Marsh, Rhys Hoskins, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Boehm, and Bryce Harper all hitting home runs. Bryce Harper doing it in the first inning. And we said this at the beginning of the series. This Philly crowd is going to ignite something in the Phillies offense, who came into this game averaging 7 runs at home, 5-0 in Citizens Bank Park. And what did they do? Scored 7 runs again. And now, which we're going to talk about later in game 4 with Nola versus Cristian Javier, I want to talk about a little bit of the similarities between Cristian Javier and Justin Verlander, what worked for Verlander, what didn't, what Cristian Javier can take from those starts.
Yeah.
But overall, this was just a Philly domination. And it wasn't even just on offense. The Phillies could have just sat there with that Bryce Harper 2-run home run and they would have won. This is also a story of the Astros not being able to hit anything.
It's a two-parter, right? It's the Phillies putting up 7 runs and the Phillies not allowing a single run on the other end. So we're going to talk about the 7 and then we'll talk about the 0 here. Jack Peters' baseball show. This is Wednesday, November 2nd. As we prep you for game 4, everything pushed back. But yeah, it was Bryce Harper who took just like a nothing curveball and sent it into oblivion in the first inning. His 6th homer of the postseason. That is the postseason lead. And then in the bottom of the second, Alec Boehm obliterated a baseball. And then it was Brandon Marsh on a ball to right center. And then in the 5th, it was Kyle Schwarber and Rhys Hoskins against McCullers. I mean, it was bombs away. So Schwarber had the postseason lead in homers with 6 for all but 4 innings, and then his teammate Rhys Hoskins matches him. So this team has been built on the long ball, right? This was what the free agency period told us about the Philadelphia Phillies. It's going to be Harper, Hoskins, Castellanos, Schwarber, Realmuto. They're all going to hit at least 20 homers. Chances are a couple of them are going to hit 30 to 35 to 40. Schwarber led the National League in homers. We know what Bryce Harper does. We know what Rhys Hoskins can do. I mean, there was just so much thump in this lineup in March. And here we are in November talking about the thump in this lineup. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it carries over into the World Series, right? And we've rattled off so many stats before about teams that normally hit the most home runs in these series often win these ball games because it's just really hard to string together hits in the playoffs. And the Phillies, I think John Smoltz was talking about on the broadcast. He was like, I don't know the exact stat, but I'm going to go with this is the most runs scored by a team in a World Series game that never put a runner in scoring position. Like the Astros put plenty of runners in scoring position. They had multiple innings where there was runners on first and second or second and third, and none of their guys ever came up big, especially in that 5th inning, which I really want to talk about with Ranger Suarez. It was, and another just great decision by Rob Thompson. I love what he's been doing. He's been managing this series beautifully. I mean, outside of, like, if I told you, Jack, that the Phillies would be up 2-1 in the series after Nola and Wheeler both gave up 5 earned runs in their start, you would have called me crazy because you would have been like, well, how did they win those games? Well, Ranger Suarez came in and threw 5 shutty. And I was in my article, when I was trying to predict the game, I had the first 5 over. And it wasn't just because I was like, I think the Phillies are going to score early and often against McCullers, against the slider, and they've been at home, how good the offense has been. But they match up so well against Ranger Suarez's sinker. Against left-handed sinkers, the Astros as a team ranked number 1 in xWOBA, 407. Freddie Freeman had a 403 xWOBA on the season. Like, that's how good they were. And what did Ranger Suarez do? He located with a fastball. He used the fastball a lot. He was surgical. He reminded me of Framber. He literally Frambered the Astros. He gave it right back to them. And then in that spot where Jose Altuve came up with runners in scoring position, instead of going to the righty in the bullpen, Rob Thompson stuck with Ranger, and he got that little poop, like little ditzy little pop-up to Rhys Hoskins to end the inning. And that just gave the Phillies that that they needed. And it gave Ranger a lot of confidence. You could see they ran back in the dugout and immediately scored in that bottom of the fifth inning. That's where a lot of the runs came too. Overall, domination by the Phillies, nothing burger from the Astros.
27-year-old Ranger Suarez, 14 and 2/3 innings in this postseason. He's got a 1.23 ERA. I mean, he's got a better ERA in the postseason than Zach Wheeler. He's got a better ERA in the postseason than Aaron Nola. Ranger has been, I don't want to say the best because Wheeler has been the best pitcher for the Phillies in the postseason, but you can't deny the number. Like it's the most consistent results coming from Ranger Suarez right now, and much shorter leash for him. I mean, how can you script this? A game that the Phillies throw Ranger Suarez, Connor Brogdon, Kyle Gibson, Nick Nelson, and Andrew Bellotti. They win 7-0.
I think this. What's the story of the playoffs so far? Is it the Phillies bullpen on top of Ranger 2? How about have they allowed a run
in this series?
In this series, have they allowed a run?
Let me go back and look
I don't think they have, Jack. If you think about it, Aaron Nola allowed those 5 earned runs. Phillies won 6-5. Zach Wheeler allowed 5 earned runs. They lost 5-2. Then they won 7-0 last night. I don't think the Phillies bullpen has allowed run, and Nick Castellanos should win the Gold Glove in right field. This is the complete opposite of everything we talked about with the Phillies. We knew the offense would show up. Like if I told you, Jack, I just can't get over this. If I told you that the starting pitching for the Phillies, not Ranger, but Wheeler and Nola would be the problem, and they'd be up 2-1, you would have called me insane.
Phillies bullpen hasn't allowed a run in the World Series through 3 games
against the Astros lineup.
Yeah,
it's credit to Thompson putting the right guys in the right spots, but it's also credit the Phillies bullpen. They have been so good. All of them. There hasn't been one guy who, when he came in, I had a lack of confidence in. Bellotti's pitching well. Brogdon's pitching well. Even Nick Nelson, of all people, giving it his all.
Dude,
gave you one scoreless.
Did Kyle Gibson not freak the shit out of you when he came in?
There was no one who I was like, when Kyle Gibson came in, I was like, okay, here come the runs, maybe. But I wasn't like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
They're throwing strikes, saying Astros hit it. That's why Ranger is such a breath of fresh air too, working quickly. Throwing strikes, goes 0-2 on every single Astros hitter.
But that's been Wheeler and Nola all postseason too. That's all 3 of those like 3-headed monster in the starting rotation.
Not nibbling, just here, take it. Let's see if you can hit it.
Yeah.
And they can't.
Nola throws more pitches in the strike zone than like really any starting pitcher in baseball. Zach Wheeler is a guy that is not afraid of anybody within the strike zone. And Ranger Suarez has unlocked this new level of confidence where you're right. It's Framber-esque. It's here's a bowling ball, try and do something with it. And as of this postseason, not many guys can do anything with it. So
nope.
5 of the Phillies' 7 hits left the ballpark.
Yes.
They needed 1 to leave last night, and 5 of them left. And I mean, they didn't have another extra base hit.
This is
Brandon
just what
Marsh
they're
had another.
This is what they're doing at Citizens Bank. I don't even think we should be all that surprised, right? Should we be that surprised?
Dude,
that the Phillies offense that has a 975 OPS at home going into that game with 12 home runs, hit a bunch of home runs. This is the MO. This just might not stop. Why would it stop?
Shouldn't be surprised, but what did you make of Lance McCullers?
Well, are we going to talk about him tipping pitches? The thing that at least one thing per series, like And when Bryce Harper, he hits that home run and he immediately goes to Alec Bohm. He says, "Come here," tells him something under his breath. Alec Bohm immediately hits the home run on an off-speed pitch. Then they have those in dugout interviews where they're like, "Hey, Alec, what did Bryce tell you?" He's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
He just gave me, that's between us, is what he said. It's between us. I bet he said this is what he's doing. And I got a bunch of DMs about stuff. You want to read them? Because I looked into it more, and the one that I was sent made the most sense to me when I went and looked back. This is from Noah. I don't want to mispronounce his last name. Bien. He's at 70, spelled 77 NB. I think the left heel at his balance position is the most convincing throughout the start. Tighter to his right leg, meaning off speed, more space in between, meaning fastball. Also, his glove height and leg kick seem higher at his balance position on off speed pitches compared to fastballs. And I got a bunch of DMs about all this different stuff. Like, look at this, look at this. That was the best way to describe it. So I didn't want to just like take that, and because that's exactly what happened. I want to shout out Noah. Thank you for sending me that. That's exactly what he was doing. Now, was it egregious? But it definitely gave the Phillies an edge. Like, I don't think there's a question that between off speed and fastball, he looked different. I went and looked back to it was even kind of telling on the broadcast when you were watching it live. Like, once I got that, I really looked into it. He was tipping his pitches, or at least it looked like it to me.
So the thing that went viral like early in the game was a screenshot of his leg kick at quote unquote the same point in two different pitches. And it was what, higher, and the glove was higher for breaking balls, and it was lower and more subdued for fastballs. That looked,
but it wasn't just that, it was how he set up too.
I know. So it's hard to fully validate that it was like glove hand being higher or like knee being higher on breaking balls, because you might just be like one split second off on those screenshots. But I think Jeremy Frank put this out too. Like there was variance, like throughout the entirety of the start here. Like he was varying his knee heights and his glove hand heights and all that. But interesting note about his lift leg, about his foot, whether it was pointed down or pointed up on that, because that's just not something that I saw. It's tough to tell if a guy's tipping pitches, but if the fan is picking up on it, if Twitter is picking up on it in a start, guarantee you the Phillies are picking up on it, because the Phillies see way more pitchers than the typical fan does.
And also, I mean, it's got to help that Lance McCullers won't throw a fastball to a lefty.
Yes.
So they're just sitting on breaking balls anyway. You got to switch it up a little bit. I mean, so not only is he probably tipping pitches, but he's not varying it much. Phillies hitters can just sit back and wait on one of those hanging sliders, which McCullers was doing a lot of. I came into the start expecting Lance McCullers to have a little bit of command issues, and I think it was evident in the first inning. Ranger Suarez got through the first inning in 9 pitches. But Lance McCullers' first at bat against Kyle Schwarber's 6-pitch walk, couldn't really get anything in the strike zone. Even he went down, I think it was 3-0, battled back. One of those pitches could have been ball 4 anyway. So, in my opinion, it looked like he threw 5 balls that at bat. And then it just unraveled from there. And then Bryce Harper hit that home run, and it almost seemed like the game was over. One of the loudest crowds ever. Yeah. I mean, the decibels in that system must have been through the absolute roof. Crazy. Imagine the intoxication in Philly day after an Eagles, or like a couple days after an Eagles win and Halloween.
Holy Yingling
around the world, and I loved it.
Great day, terrible day to be a Yingling. Yeah, Pedro
terrible day to be a Yingling.
Yeah. Pedro Martinez on MLB Network said, I was surprised it was that drastic in regard to him tipping pitches. Pedro believed that he was tipping pitches. Lance McCullers was asked post-game if he was tipping pitches, or if he believed that he was. And he said, quote, "I'm not going to sit here and say anything like that. I got whooped. End of story." He probably was, like,
I
to
respect
some
that.
degree.
I
Yeah,
respect that from McCullers.
to some degree he was, but you're right, man. Like it's predictable. I mean, it was a nothing breaking ball in
Yeah.
the first inning to Bryce Harper. And if he's not going to see a fastball, he'll sit on a dud. Bryce Harper's
Yeah.
so good, dude. I mean, like that was the first pitch he saw of the game, and it was a get me over curveball. You think you can get away with a get me over curveball to the hottest hitter on the planet and the hottest hitter we've seen in the postseason in years?
And what's crazy is like you're right about Bryce Harper being one of the hottest hitters, but they have so many of them that were just sitting on the same thing. Same thing. It was not that hard unless McCullers was perfect with his location on those couple of pitches. They were home runs. They were middle. They were getting sent to the moon. And that's exactly what happened. McCullers
Man.
had to be perfect. And even when he was perfect, he was telling them what was coming.
Yeah.
It was from the first inning. It was like, this is over. I would have taken him out earlier if I were Dusty. But I mean, what are you going to do, right? I mean, they even put in Urquidy. He did perfectly fine.
He threw three.
Could have put in Luis Garcia. They could have put in Hunter Brown.
If it wasn't as immediate a bombardment as it was, I do think that Dusty would have made the move earlier. But
Possibly.
I mean, that game got really out of hand really quick. So
Yes, it did get out of hand quickly, but so it was 4-0 after 2 innings. But then we put up 2 goose eggs in the end, and then in the 5th inning, third time through the order. Like I just wouldn't have let him pitch that 5th. I wouldn't have let him go third time because the Astros at that point, it's the 4th inning. The internet is going crazy that saying McCullers is tipping your pitches. You have so many bullpen arms. I think he should have taken him out. I really do. I mean, hindsight's 2020. We're sitting here the morning after talking it through. So it's easy to say that. But I will say that during the game, I said, I had the first 5 over, Jack. And I was like, please leave McCullers out there. Please. Because he's going to allow runs. And he did. So I should be the manager of the Astros.
that's one way to put it. I had no idea the Ranger wasn't going to allow runs to the Houston Astros, but that's that. And here we are, Phillies up 2-1 on Houston. Game 4 tonight, 8:00 at Citizens Bank Park. Cristian, Javier, and Aaron Nola. The rain out on Sunday or on Monday did a good thing for Philly.
Really helped them.
It really, really helped them because it was going to go Syndergaard, then Ranger, then Nola. Now it's going Ranger, then Nola, then Syndergaard. And then game 3 is going to be Wheeler. I thought that game 6, yeah. I thought that the rain out was going to be like their get out of jail free card with having to start Noah Syndergaard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why they're still budgeting him into their plans, but I'm not going to question Rob Thompson at this point.
You know what's funny? The more I did research, like just on regular season data, Syndergaard seemed like a better matchup against the Astros than Ranger did. Because the Astros have been not only one of baseball's best against lefties, against Suarez's pitch mix, against Syndergaard's pitch mix, not as much. Plus, Syndergaard during the regular season, much better command than Ranger did. But then what we saw from Ranger is he didn't throw a ball basically all night.
Yeah.
They couldn't hit him. So I don't necessarily think that Syndergaard's just going to get demolished out there. And especially when you have a Phillies bullpen that the Astros just can't hit. Like, I'm not calling that an auto loss. But at the same time, I know in the Phillies locker room, what they're saying is, this is a must-win game. That's what it feels like to me. But on the same side, the Astros are saying, this is as must-win as possible, right? Yeah. But I'm the only reason I'm saying it feels like more must-win for Philly because I know the Astros are looking at Game 5 saying, we have Noah Syndergaard against Justin Verlander.
Correct.
But Verlander's also struggled. So it's a tough one. It's going to be awesome.
Verlander has not been officially named the Game 5 starter at this point.
I think he has. Yeah, he has. I think so.
It's a TBD.
He hasn't yet?
No.
Mm. I thought they put him in.
No,
Interesting.
it's a TBD. Like it's gonna be Verlander. It
What if it's
absolutely will
Urquidy?
be. No, it won't be. Promise.
Give him some credit though. He shoved.
Yeah. No, I'll give Urquidy credit. He threw great in mop up duty yesterday. No, I mean, so this is tough. I feel so much better if I'm Philly if Noah Syndergaard's starting a game up 3-1 than starting a game tied 2-2. Starting a game 5. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
Are you kidding me?
2-2 and I'm running Noah Syndergaard out there. I'm not sleeping the night before.
Yeah. Because
3-1,
you're not
it's like,
throwing
okay, we'd like this one.
you're not throwing Thor, you're throwing Noah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I
Noah's
get
not
you.
that menacing a name.
No, he's not. And I really want to talk about, so what I'm writing now in my article is, and you'll, as you're listening to this, my picks might be out by the time you're listening to this. Cristian Javier and Verlander are very similar in their pitch mix.
Yes.
And Phillies did just fine off Justin Verlander. Now, is that a result of Verlander in the World Series and his 6.07 ERA now? And then he just hasn't performed. But what we know from Verlander and Javier is they are fastball, slider, curveball. So the Phillies have seen this pitch mix before and done really well off it. But Javier is coming off that 5 1/3 1-hit domination of the Yankees.
Yeah.
But then I think to myself, Jack, didn't we know that was coming anyway? Cristian Javier owns the Yankees. Will he own the Phillies? In a Citizens Bank Park, Cristian Javier is a very young pitcher. If I'm not mistaken, this is his first World Series start, even though the Astros seem to be there every single year. He's been mostly doing swingman duties. This is a very tough environment for Cristian Javier to go into in a must-win game for the Astros against Aaron Nola, who's bound to make an adjustment, right? He's got to stop throwing the sinker. The Astros destroy his sinker. The fastball and the knuckle curve is what was getting the job done for Nola. It's this sinker that he leaves in the zone that the Astros are just destroying. If I'm him, I'm not canning the sinker, but I'm throwing it far less. I'm mixing in my cutter. I'm mixing in my changeup. I'm not throwing that sinker in the zone anymore if I'm Nola. Make the adjustment, Nola, because the past 2 starts for him have not been good. First 2, unbelievable. Last 2, hasn't gotten out of the 5th inning and has allowed 5 earned runs or more in both of those starts. He has to make the adjustment.
I think home is going to help him. I do. And I think that
I
he's
would hope
too good
so.
a pitcher to have 3 bad starts in a row in the postseason.
I totally agree with you. And like right now, I'm leaning Phillies money line again.
So the only reason I push back is because I don't think right-handed hitters for the Phillies are going to do anything against Cristian Javier.
You could be right.
Javier's been dialed the fuck in this postseason. He's got a 1.35 ERA this postseason.
I agree. And Javier's been better against righties. Like he has been, you could say he's, besides Framber, he's the best pitching option the Astros have.
At this moment, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, at this moment, I agree. Like this is, don't think of Cristian Javier as this former swingman. He is one of the best pitchers in the American League. Let's not get it twisted.
So here's the thing, like Verlander, yes, obviously he struggles in the World Series historically, and he has quote unquote struggled this postseason. And he has, like, he doesn't have that great of a postseason ERA.
Neither does Nola.
No, 4, neither 5, does 7. Nola. But the thing is, you only get like 4 chances, 5 chances. If you're
but this is a
Series.
4-start sample at this point. Yeah. 4, 5, 7 for Nola. That's just it's just the reality.
Yes. I'd say the drop between 1 and 4 is minuscule from Verlander, from postseason Verlander to Cristian Javier. Like there's hardly really any drop off right now. The Astros are running out 4 of kind of the same guys skill wise.
I would almost say that there's a drop off from Javier to Verlander at this point.
No, nope, can't say it.
We'll see. We'll see. But would you be surprised if Javier throws a shutout and Verlander couldn't get through 5?
Not in the slightest.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying here. That's why I'm saying there's almost no drop off.
So how tight of a leash do you think Javier's on? Because that's my thing. Like Dusty went to Ryan Stanek for 2 outs and then Jose Urquidy for 3 after McCullers. So he's got an entirely rested bullpen after the rain out and the travel day. He's got 2 swingmen at his disposal in Luis Garcia and Hunter Brown. I mean, Javier, I think, is going to go at least 5. But if he doesn't, what's the first move? Is it Brown and then Garcia? Is it Garcia then Brown? And then you also have Montero and Neris and Brian fucking Abreu, who's so good, and Ryan
good.
Presley. Like, there's so much
good.
pitching here, but the bats need to hold their up their end of the bargain.
It's hard to think that they won't. They're also going in confidently, thinking that, whatever Aaron Nola gives us, we can hit. But I agree with you. This Phillies offense at home is unfucking believable.
Yeah.
So no matter how well Javier pitches, the Phillies could just send one out of the park. And when you say against righties, you're right, but Schwarber could hit one lefty. Harper could hit one.
Bryce Harper's
lefty.
left-handed.
How about Brandon Marsh standing on his head? How about Bryson Stott as well? It's not an Astros lineup that's predominantly right-handed outside of Tucker and Yordan, who also have not been hitting. Yordan is cold right now. Yeah. Tucker is 0 in his last 2 games. Tucker's hit the ball hard, but they haven't landed.
Yeah,
I assume one's going to land one soon. But if your lefties in the lineup aren't hitting for the Astros, and then it's a bunch of righties all in a row, David Hensley's the only guy doing anything. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, he had 1 hit, which is sick. But
I loved a text that we got from Ethan Badowski. It was great stuff for us. He said, "Call me a casual, but who the fuck is David Hensley, and why is he DHing in the World Series?"
You mean the 6'6" LSU product?
Fair question, honestly.
No, fair question. We barely seen him. How many at bats when I was looking at David Hensley's stats before the beginning of the playoffs, I was like, I think this guy's 68 bats.
Yeah,
it was the most Astros move. They
and
put
it's
him
not
in
like he's a top 10 prospect in their system. Yeah,
no, he's 26 rounder.
Yeah, I mean Hensley. I'm totally with him. Like, who is that guy? But that was kind of Chas McCormick, right? Like that was kind of Jake Myers a couple of years ago.
McCormick or Chas is the Astros like best hitter right now. But It's funny. So Hensley made his debut August 27th. And over in the 2022 regular season, he had 29 ABs, but he had 10 hits at 1,027 OPS. And Arm was like, this guy crushes lefties. And I was like, Arm, you're right. But he's got a 1,127 OPS against righties too. The dude just rakes. I don't know who he is really, but he rakes.
Dude rakes in 35 plate appearances.
Fucking rakes. Who cares? Astros had the data. They were like, he's getting a hit off Suarez at his first AB. Look what he did.
Damn.
No one else could.
Boy, how do you see this game shaking out?
God, man, I'm still writing. Like, I'm still torn. It's just like, how can you bet against the Phillies at home right now? Right? If they're going to take 2 of 3, do you think it's more likely they take this game or the Noah Syndergaard start?
They take this.
I think it's more likely they take this one. Like, what can you do? It's one of those games where it's like Phillies just blew them out. The flip-flopping, you assume Astros are going to win this game because if that's what's playoff baseball. But what? This team is averaging 7 runs a game going into this, and they put up 7 runs again on 5 homers. What? And now they have Nola, who's probably going to make the adjustment again, who, although he got hit up in his first start of the postseason against the Astros, he did take a perfect game into the 7th inning in the last start of the regular season in Minute Maid. Now he goes back to Citizens Bank, making the adjustment. Is he going to lose? Javier, young starter, as good as he's been, and he's done it in big spots. He did it in Yankee Stadium, but Yankee Stadium ain't Citizens Bank. Yeah. Not even close, it feels like. I lean towards the Phillies, but I'm still going through it. Probably my least confident play. Like last night, my most confident play was the over through the first 5. Yeah. My least confident is probably this game because you can make an argument for both sides. Jack, if you came to me and said, look at how bad Nola's pitched, right? How well will the Phillies bullpen do again in this type of scenario when the Astros have to win this game, when Javier's been one of their best pitchers, when they're due for an offensive outburst? I'd be like, you're right. But then if you said, Peter, dude, Aaron Nola is going to make the adjustment. Phillies offense can't be stopped, and they're at home, and this is also somewhat of a must-win because they know they have Syndergaard going to Game 5. I'd be like, you're also right. Like, it's just however you're feeling. How do you feel?
I don't know. Rob Thompson can allocate 9 innings to Nola, Dominguez, Alvarado, and Robertson, and Eflin if he wants.
That's tough to beat.
That's his A team. I think any way you slice it and you look at home field advantage, you look at Nola bouncing back, you look at Harper and Schwarber possibly getting to a cement mixing slider from Javier, you say, okay, like, I guess I would lean that the Phillies win and they go up 3-1, but because of that, like, my lower intestine is saying like Astros. You know what I mean?
Me too.
That's the thing about baseball. Like at some point you got to say, well, I'm probably super fucking wrong. and that's how I feel at this point. Like there are a lot of scenarios that I'm just like that are zipping through my head right now, and they all are coming up Phillies, and they jump ahead 3-1, and then Houston is down 3-2 going back to Houston. And because every scenario is coming up Phillies internally, that's why I externalize Astros, because I don't trust myself like that. I don't think anybody trusts themselves like that. You know what I mean? Like, but that's World Series baseball. Whatever you think is going to happen, probably not.
The opposite.
That's
why I like playing totals. I'm just like, do I think they're going to score? I don't know who or when, but I think they're going to
score.
Yeah. Like, for example, I did all of this research, Jack. I was like, couldn't be a better matchup for the Astros. The sinker, how well they hit it, the rest of his pitches. This is, I know the Phillies are going to score, but I know the Astros are going to score. What happens? Ranger Suarez basically throws a perfect game outside of a couple seeing eye singles, right? That's playoff baseball at its finest. What if I told you that going into the series, Nick Castellanos would make 4 diving catches and Alec Bohm would look like a vacuum at third base? You'd be like, shut up. Like you would say, shut up, Peter.
Yeah.
Like you're going off the rails.
That's the joking shit that I would say. Like when I just try and deadpan sarcasm, it's like, I think Alec Bohm is going to be a Gold Glove caliber third baseman this week.
And Nick Castellanos is going to save base hits out there, right?
Yes. He's going to accumulate 3 outs above average this week.
Yes. He would have a better playoff series on defense in 3 games than his entire 2022 season.
Yeah, I mean, like that, but that's what we're fucking looking at, dude. It makes no sense, but here we are.
Makes no sense. That's why it's the best sport in the world, is because you can't, it's the most unscripted game possible, and with the most data to back it.
And because you get an environment like Philly. That's the thing. You're not getting this environment in any other sport.
That's why I'm almost thinking, could the Phillies just win in 5?
No.
It's no, right? No
Absolutely,
way.
Yes, they can.
Yes, probably will now.
They can. No shot they do, dude.
Yeah.
No shot. But they can totally win in 5.
Yeah, like there's no way they do it, but they probably do.
Yeah. No, they absolutely do. There's not a doubt in my mind that the Phillies win in 5. But the Astros are going to win in 7. Dude, score prediction for this one? Like,
yeah.
More homers?
Probably. I think the Phillies win 4-3. And I have no confidence in that.
I think the Astros are going to win 5-1.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, you're relying on Cristian Javier to give you another great start in a hostile environment when Philly has all the momentum.
Yes.
Could happen. Or Phillies take an early lead. Nola looks good, not great. Like, I'm just thinking, what's the most likely scenario? Is that in a hostile environment, a young pitcher like Cristian Javier, who has a similar pitch mix to a pitcher they already crushed, comes in and dominates, or the Phillies bats just stay hot in an environment they're incredibly comfortable in, and Aaron Nola makes an adjustment? Like, what's more likely? It seems that the latter is more likely,
But Javier doesn't need to be.
And that's all I can do is like a betting man, right? Is play the more likely scenario.
Yeah,
but
or you could
we
already
wouldn't be
see
surprised
it.
at all if Javier just shoves and the Astros tie it up. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
That's the thing. Like Javier's arsenal allows him to not have to be perfect in order to succeed. Like he's got such a high spin fastball. He's got such a high spin slider. He has gross stuff. His fastball's gross. If your fastball's gross, you can get away with mistake fastballs. If it's just gross, and you can get away with mistake sliders. And that's not Lance McCullers. Lance McCullers needs to be perfect with his breaking ball, especially when you know that the breaking ball is coming. With Javier, he can go to any of the two pitches that he goes to for the overwhelming majority of the time, fastball, slider, at any point, and you're playing a guessing game, and they're both elite pitches. So, yes, he's a young arm, but he's a young arm that can almost overthrow and still have success.
And we'll see. But do you agree with me, though? Like, what's the more likely scenario? Is that the Phillies bats stay hot and Aaron Nola makes the adjustment, or that Cristian Javier shuts them down completely and the Astros get to Aaron Nola again?
I think the Phillies win this game 15-12.
Maybe. Or 1-0.
I think that's the most likely outcome.
Also, as we end this show, I'd like to shout out my co-host, Jack McMullen. He is off 2, maybe 3 hours of sleep.
I'll give myself 3.
We'd like to give him a clap because he was at Ball State just observing defense in the MAC, and then comes back, has a 5-hour bus ride home, hops on the mic, gets to bed at 6 a.m. We started recording at 9 a.m., press the record button, and he's giving you his best shot.
Dudes, okay, so you're going to hear this. I'm posting this on Megaphone, which will in turn spit it out to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm going to be in fetal position under like 10 layers, and you might not hear from me until 3 p.m. So
I'll be in the lab.
Hey, Carson Steele. I don't know if you caught any action last night. You were probably locked in on the World Series. Ball State running back.
I wasn't watching an ounce of football. And on my timeline, you know, all the betting people who I love to follow, they're like, oh, yeah, the action. I'm like, I could have 4 TVs and they're all just going to be the World Series right now.
Okay. So I'll be at Toledo next week, 8:00 ESPN, Ball State at Toledo. That's going to be the kind of the game that decides the MAC West here.
Is that the game of the year?
I think so. Carson Steele, running back, Mr. Football in Indiana in 2021.
Wow.
Only Division I offer was Ball State. He was passed over by all the Power 5 schools locally. This dude cleans 300 pounds, squats 675. They cap him at 675. He's got 7% body fat. Grew up with a pet alligator. Name is Crocky J. He was listed on like the Athletics like freak list, one of the biggest freaks in college football. This guy 190 yards rushing and a couple of touchdowns yesterday. I mean, he's a freakazoid. So when you turn on Maction next week, remember I told you about Carson Steele, okay?
And remember the voice that you're listening to, which is my co-host, Jack McMullen. That'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Make sure you use code October15 to get 15% off Just Baseball merch. This is the best way to support this podcast. And we still have our Manscaped link live. Use 20% off Manscaped. Use code JB Show, all caps. That is also in our episode description. We're going to keep covering the World Series and giving you our best shot, because the best part about baseball is it is completely unscripted, and everything we say here might not even matter. We could analyze it for hours, just like I analyzed Ranger Suarez' matchup against the Astros. I said he was going to get crushed. What did he do? 5 innings, 3 hits, 4 Ks, domination. What could happen today? We have no idea, and that's the best part about baseball. So with that, thank you, everybody.
10-9 Astros in 14 innings.